'Tis the season, yes, that's right. It is the season for the Living Legend format. You know, if you watched any of the videos last week, then I'm really into Blitz right now. But that's not the only format that's on the agenda, because in about a month, maybe even less than a month now, we will have our first classic constructed Living Legend. That's not how you say that. Just living. I'm just going to call it the Living Legend format calling, hosted in Chicago by none other than MinMax Games. So to prep for that, to look at the format as a whole, let's take a look at some of the results that we've had most recently at the World Championship, because the battle hardened at the World Championship in Osaka was indeed the Living Legend format. So let's dive into each of the heroes and deck lists and talk about where this format stands as of right now and after the bans. First things first, just a reminder, yes, Kraken's Aether Vein was banned on October the 4th. This was before the World Championship Battle Hardened, which was Living Legend format. Also, they have opened the floodgates onto the ban list, or really I should say the restricted list. You can play one copy of it. Do keep in mind this is alongside of Awakening, which deserves to be just broken in half, Bonds of Ancestry, Crippling Crush, Hypothermia, Oaken Old, and Warmonger's Diplomacy. Those are all cards you can only run one of in this format, but otherwise, and of course Kraken's Aether Vein doesn't exist. Otherwise, those are the cards you can only include one of and only have to play around. Everything else is fair game. So let's start off with the top 8 heroes and the top 8 deck lists. There we go. Okay, I got us a little bit of elbow room so that we have some more space to look at these deck lists. By the way, huge shout out to Fabrary for collecting and then maintaining such a wonderful site that allows us to look at all of these deck lists so easily, and for all the visual learners out there. Carlo here, if you don't know Carlo, you should know Carlo on the old internets. He's really, really good player, does incredible work over in the APAC region, and brought Briar to a top 8 finish. I think it's really cool that Briar now has some space in this format, off of the back of a couple of different things. Obviously, when Rosetta comes out, you have a lot more access to a lot more cards, and Face Purgatory is one of those, especially this list, which is more of the callback to the Channel Mount Heroic Briar. And this is something that you could certainly put together and run out there and have a lot of fun with. If you were not around when Briar was first doing her thing, this is an opportunity for you to kind of pick it back up and try it out for yourself. It feels very cool and very good to play out, you know, like Ravenous Rabble or Scar for a Scar into like, you know, a Snatch that's threatening a draw card, and then off of the back of that you could do some things like with Force of Nature fused into double draws. I mean, it was a blast. And like the last time I played this form of the deck was in Blitz, and now that you can have it back in CC and you have a little bit of this back and forth, it's really, really exciting. Plus, in the Living Legend format, you have Ball Lightning, which is a card that we're going to see here in a little bit in a different list, but it's a card that not enough people actually got to play with, and it did not last very long in Classic Constructed before it had to be removed. So this is a cool like way for you as a newer player to pick up a card that definitely made waves when it first came out. But there's a lot of really cool synergies with this deck. Obviously, this is not set up to sideboard. I want to point out too, the use of the Burn Up Shock, which is a new card to the deck, Static Shock, which is a new card to the deck, and this one is really cool, Regrowth Shock, which of course all of these cards that we just talked about either came out in the Rosetta set themselves, or in the case of Static Shock, came out in the First Strike deck for Aurora. But Regrowth Shock is essentially a specialization for Briar that allows you to one, ping with the 1 Arcane on the instant side of things, and then pick up an action card, an attack action card specifically, with cost less than X from your graveyard. Essentially, if you've dealt 1 Arcane on the turn, you get to get a 0 cost back. And on a turn like that where you've set up Channel Mount Heroic, this card is so cool. This card's nuts. Also, it's a blue 3 block, so it hits like all the right things except for maybe for Ravenous Rabble. So if you are, you know, like leaning into Ravenous Rabble, this doesn't feel great, but the fact that it allows you to go and grab something for a big turn means that you now have a little bit more agency and perhaps like some sort of a control fatigue matchup. But other than that, I mean, it's a lot of what you would expect to see. Also, shout out to Vaporize Shock making the list as a one of, which is a cool little tech choice. Same thing with Nasty Surprise, Ripple Away, and the one copy that you're allowed to play of Warmonger's Diplomacy. But other than that, this deck is a sort of a straight up and down affair, and it's super cool to see Briar back in it. Not to be out Rune Bladed though, we have Chris Yali on Viscer, also making the top 8. By the way, just doing the Bloodsheath Skeleton thing. Again, some of these, like, this is the best part about the Living Legend format, is the players that got to experience these cards when they came out look at these like maybe fondly in some ways, and maybe like, oh, I remember how terrible that card was. But now that it's in a degenerate format like the Living Legend format where it belongs, we're kind of happy, right? And then if you're a player that has no clue what this card did back in the day, you get to experience the trauma for yourself. But it's probably better now. So here we have a more up and down aggressive version of Viscer with some of the new tools. Deadwood Dirge is fantastic. People are still just playing that all over the place in Blitz and Classic Constructed right now, like a lot of Insets playing that right now. You've got that access to that, all the Malefic incantations. The cool thing about this deck, by the way, is if you're already playing Viscer in the Classic Constructed format, it's not that difficult for you to step into this format and pivot your deck around. A lot of these cards are very similar to what you would be playing in the normal Classic Constructed format. So you don't have to make these big changes. Honestly, you can just bring your normal Viscer list, splash in a couple of cards, like for example, some of the equipment. Bloodsheath Skeleton is now legal. Rosetta Thorn, you can dust Rosetta Thorn back off. And then just throw in things that people just aren't playing, like Sonata Phantasmia, which is a blue 3-block, and you could use it for its effect as well. But this is just makes my heart happy to see these decks in Living Legend format. I really do love this format in general, because I love the idea of being able to visit old heroes again with new tools at their disposal. And it's been a minute since Viscer has had access to Rosetta Thorn, about a year at this point. It's been about a year at this point, and players that have just joined the game can now try Rosetta Thorn alongside of the power cards like Malefic Incantation and Deadwood Dirge that they didn't have access to before in the same deck. So congrats to Chris to taking this to a top 8 and allowing Viscer to live again. The top 8, by the way, was full of Rune Blades. So here we go with Su Jaeyoung's top 8. Osaka 5th. They all say 5th place. I don't know, because they're all technically, I guess, 5th place. They were all quarterfinals dropped games, unfortunately. But Aurora is the name of the game in this one, and this one has all the makings and all the tools of the combo package. And there's a reason why, because like you can do some really crazy cool combo things with this. But yeah, also, 9 copies of Ball Lightning. And this is something cool too, because like you can go play Aurora in Classic Constructed, but what you can't do is play Ball Lightning. And maybe that's a good thing, I don't know, but I think it's really cool because Ball Lightning is just one of those cards that, again, we talked about it earlier, not a lot of people have had the opportunity to see the game-breaking potential of Ball Lightning. And here, Ball Lightning is put on full display. Now, everything else besides this is going to be pretty similar looking overall. 2 copies, by the way, of Vaporized Shock here. This is pretty solid because it allows you to destroy X aura tokens, and being able to pop auras like Rune Chance or Spectral Shields, things like that. Good little tech for what is perceived going into this event to be a pretty strong, or a couple of pretty strong heroes in Rune Blades and Chain, technically, because he's Soul Shackles. In Rune Blades, in general, and also in like Spectral Shields in Prism. So this is a pretty cool little tech. But now you have access to Arc Lightning, Sting of Sorcery, and I was like desperately looking around to see if I could find it, but there's no copies of Flicker Wisp, which I think is pretty interesting. But honestly, you probably don't even need it, because this is basically Flicker Wisp. Like when you look at Ball Lightning's basically Flicker Wisp. Now, back in the day, you had this tech where you could play, like Sting of Sorcery into a bunch of Ball Lightnings to come over the top of like defensive decks, control decks, because this says deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. When an attack action goes, the attack action deals it. And then Ball Lightning says whenever it would deal damage this combat chain, instead it deals that much +1. So essentially, by playing Ball Lightning, you get the opportunity to ping for 2, which is really, really powerful and pretty degenerate and very cool. And you combine that with Arc Lightning, and you go again automatically on these, and it's just, I mean, that is so cool. Like this, I was really excited when I saw that you could play the overall like Channel Mount Heroic Briar deck, but I'm just gonna say it. Like if I wanted to play a combo deck that wasn't Kano, this just looks like way too much fun. So I will be jamming this on Talishar and just experiencing the joy of Ball Lightning coupled with Arc Lightning and Sting of Sorcery. Outside of that, this is again a lot of what you already know in Aurora in Classic Constructed, now just with a new twist put on it, which I think is just fantastic. And another Rune Blade shows up, Brody Spurlock with the Chain Bound by Shadow, making his way into the top 8 as well. Again, getting access to Face Purgatory as a headpiece, but being able to play off of my old spoiler card from Monarch, Carrion Husk, which is a fantastic card in general. But this one, it's so interesting. Like all of these Rune Blades do Rune Blade things with some of the same core cards, but are doing it so differently that it's really cool to see. Here's one that does it with Belittle and Minnowism, and of course Plunder Run, but like with the Banish package, 9 Bounding Demagon. You get to splash in Eloquent Eulogy if you haven't played with that card yet in the deck. Only 2 Swarming Gloomveil, which is pretty interesting. And then, of course, the 6 Seeds of Agonies instead of the 9. The reds ending up making the cut, I would perhaps because you can't really pitch it very well. I like the 1 of Seeping Shadows. It's just like, so weird, but kind of funny because it's a 0 cost, gives Go Again enabler for longer matchups, I'm going to assume is the reason. And Invert Existence, the throwback to Invert Existence. Now, back in the day, like Shrill was like a big overall like Rune Blade card for like Visceri and things, and only the blues here. But you also get access to drawing cards in both Tome of Fyendal and Art of War. So if you enjoy drawing cards and being able to go super, super wide with a Rune Blade and deal some arcane damage as well, this is one way to do it. This is definitely one way to do it. Also, shout out to Succumb to Temptation making the cut. It's really cool to see Rune Blades start to really eat in all formats after their set drops. Now, Wizards, on the other hand, well, one of them ate in this format, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But let's move on to Dash.io. David picks up a top 4 finish with Dash.io, and do keep in mind, Heavy Industry Gear Shift is actually tucked in here, but Achilles Accelerator as well. And then, of course, your Arcane Barrier package. One thing we haven't talked about overall with all of these lists is that they all have some plan into Wizards, specifically Kano, with Spell Void all over the place. And I think that's a very important thing to note. Amethyst Tiara, they're all respecting Kano as they should. Well, because Kano ended up winning the event, we'll talk about as we get closer to it. But this is like, I mean, you can't really write it up more straight up and down than this. This is like very straightforward. You get access to High Octane again. You know, if you've missed it for about 25 seconds that it's been banned already, High Octane's back in the format, so you can play this. You got Cerebellum Processor, and overall, it's just like all the zipper hits, all like the good throttles, the good 0 to 60s, double T-bone sets. Not going for the 9 T-bones, but everyone kind of moved away from that as it kind of shook out and shook up. But the overall plan being maximum velocity giant turns that you can set up fairly well. A smaller amount of items overall. We've got backup protocols. The reds and yellows, boom grenades, Cerebellum Processor, these right here basically. And those are your items, but you're getting them all off of the back of Spark of Genius. So you're not doing, with this version of the deck, you're not doing the big wombo combo system reset thing, but you don't really need to because the goal is to go faster than what your opponent can actually deal with. And it took David to a top 4 finish with Dash.io. Right in front of him, or right, I should say alongside of him, is Lucas Oswald, who is a, often professed lover of Bravo star of the show, has access to him here, of course, and did the standard Bravo thing. I love Lightning Greaves is like in the list, which just picture Bravo star of the show wearing these Lightning Greaves. That would be hilarious. Keep in mind with this list that there are a lot of one-ofs, and some of those are for very good reason because Crippling Crush and Oakenold can only be played as one-ofs, as well as Hypothermia can only be played as one-ofs, and Awakening can only be played as one-ofs, and technically Starstruck at the time was only a one-off, but now is brought back into the fold, and Warmonger's Diplomacy a one-off. So if you're like, why are there so many one-offs? Well, that's because these cards had to exit the deck in more than one, in multiples, because you can't play that. Shout out to Smack of Reality. That's kind of a fun card that doesn't really see play in Classic Constructed, but immediately sees play in Starvo, who can make it absolutely insane with the abilities. Also, he has a unique position to be able to play Heart of Ice, which is very annoying to play into. You can still play Heart of Ice in Blitz, and you can definitely play it in this format, and it is quite annoying if you're playing as the Wizard trying to deal with this. Oh, also you have Autumn's Touchback, which is kind of fun. But this, if you're looking to pick up Starvo and see why he was the #1 hero to, the fastest hero to rotate, it's a great list to start with. Ooh, shout out to Trip the Light Fantastic for making the cut as well. A new card and Current Funnel, all blue, a blue 3-block and a 2-block that's a blue, but you can stop essentially like Spell Void 2, which is kind of cool in a way, towards something that is coming your way with arcane damage, which is very, very cool. Otherwise, you do have some interesting pieces of defense reactions here and there, and it's more or less just a really aggressive mid-range deck, or value deck, I should say. It's an aggressive value deck. So if you're looking for something that can just do some very powerful things, Bravo Star of the Show might be what you're looking for in Living Legend format. And of course, now we come to the final two heroes that played in the finals, and one of them is Count Your Blessings Oldum. Oh my god, sorry. Oh my god, I got a little... Oh god, I threw up a little bit. Yeah, I pretended to throw up a little bit, and then I accidentally... Okay, that was gross. Yeah, this is not... No, don't do this to people. Don't be that person. Look, don't be the person that plays Count Your Blessings Oldum. Look at that stupid face. You thought Victor was bad. No. Xavier took it to a finals finish, though. Slammed the deck together with Count Your Blessings, and... Oh my god, I hate this. I'm not talking about this deck. I should be professional and all that, but, like and subscribe for more of this scintillating commentary. We're moving on. Congratulations, Xavier. It's not about you, it's about... that. Okay, hey. All right, let's talk about Kano. Kano won the event. Do you know why? Because Peter's good at playing Kano, and Kano's very good when you have access to 1 million card draw effects. So Open the Floodgates needed to be banned, in my opinion, or in this case restricted. Very much needed it. Very, very much needed it, because this format would be fantastic if Kano was brought back to the pre-Open the Floodgates power level that he was, and so be it, he was, because now you can only play one of these cards. Overall, what this deck looks like is very, very similar to what you would play in Classic Constructed. Like, if you're looking at Classic Constructed pre the book bannings, this is, I mean, it's about what you would run. Literally about what you would run, including even Warmonger's Diplomacy, and I mean, literally everything. This is just straight up Kano. There's like no sugarcoating it. There's no like, let's dive deep into the side of this list. If you like playing Kano and you already have all the cards, you just play it. You just play Kano. And the cool thing is, you're rewarded for being very good at Kano by all of these tomes and these draw effects. Like, so we have Tome of Fjendal back, of course, Tome of Aetherwind back, and then when Peter won, he had 9 copies of Open the Floodgates, which means you're gonna hit it off the top. Now, it's more expensive, but you have all of these other card draw effects, and so you're getting way more value off of Potion of Deja Vu, which is why we see 3 copies of Potion of Deja Vu instead of 2, which I would believe that we probably just mainboard all 3 of them. In my opinion, that's what I would have done, and I would imagine that's what he would have done. Like, as far as other things, you're probably putting these in the sideboard, that in the sideboard, so Swell Tidings and Voltic Bolt are all sideboard cards. Pop the Bubble's probably a sideboard card, depending on how many blues he has here. 1, 2. Warmongers might be a sideboard card, but you could play that main board. These are sideboard cards. But overall, you're looking at 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, 26, 29, 31, 32. Yeah, so you know what? One of these might just be in there as well to make 33. A lot of players hovering around 33. But the nice thing about the card draw cards is that if you hit them off the top as a red instead of a blue, that you get the opportunity to draw with them. So overall, this is basically a straight up Kano list, and he played it to the win for the Living Legend format. Now, this, of course, this deck steps back, and Starvo, to some degree, I would say probably steps up a little bit just because it has access to 3-star structs, not by a ton. And then, as you can see, lots of Rune Blades that are available to you in the format. But, you know, it's interesting because there's a lot of Rune Blades, but you could try to put together some other heroes that might be more disruptive. So if you think we should do a deep dive into the format and talk about heroes that you could play, let me know that in a comment below. This is a good primer to take a look at what decks have already succeeded thus far. And if you enjoy this type of content, make a number go slightly higher so that number eventually will go up to the other number. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.